I guess in yesterday's vlog, I kind of outed myself as a conspiracy theorist a little bit. No, I honestly don't think I am. The other day, I asked on Twitter, how many of you guys watch conspiracy Illuminati videos? Because I see them on YouTube, and they're like really popular. And I'm also a part of a camp that, well, I understand that basically our economy is controlled by a financial cabal. Anyway, that I do believe, but a lot of this other conspiracy stuff on YouTube, you know, it's kind of disheartening because it's basically the only stuff that's actively talking about that. Conspiracy, like Alex Jones, I suppose. You know, yeah, they get into it a little bit. But I have some pretty big issues with conspiracy. First of all, I really dislike how a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, popular ones, I don't want to name names, but people that don't believe in conspiracy, or they're not into it, or they don't understand and it's complicated, they just kind of don't want to hear it. They tend to refer to those people as sheep. They call them the real zombie apocalypse. And, you know, I just don't agree with that. I don't think it makes people sheep or zombies that just because at the end of a long, stupid day, when they get home, they don't feel like sitting and watching videos about how the New World Order is coming to get your guns. They kind of just don't care. They're like, what does this have to do with me? Seriously. I really don't like that. I don't like that they do that. You know, do your part in trying to educate people, I guess, but don't insult people just because they don't agree with your theories that our president is a gay alien. But anyway, that said, it's hard for me to find people to listen to that I don't think suck. And they're way paranoid. Like I see a lot of them saying things like, oh, friggin' YouTube, keeping me down. They keep deleting my comments. And it's like, no, you're not a special case just because you're making a video about the Illuminati. Like, your comments are being deleted just like how, I don't know, everybody else's comments are being deleted. Like, that's not a special problem. You would know that if you had friends that also used YouTube. This financial cartel that I'm talking about, I also don't think they really care if we figure it out because there's not much that we can do about it. Now, I didn't talk about this for a while because I didn't want to come out with a bunch of doom and gloom if I couldn't offer some kind of, this is what we can do about it, guys. The best thing that I could come up with is if we all started voting for third parties, which I have been doing. Okay, maybe I don't have a plan of how we could exist without this financial cartel, without the Federal Reserve. Most of these third parties want to end the Fed, which there's nothing federal about it, and it's also not a reserve of anything. But the problem that I see with that is, if we were to do something like that, first of all, that's pretty revolutionary. Second of all, there would be extreme growing pains that we would want relief from, and that the Federal Reserve can then be like, whoa, wait, guys, you got yourself in a huge mess. Here, let us bail you out. I imagine if we had a huge change like that, there would be a lot of discomfort, and we would want comfort. That was kind of like a sidetracked rant. But anyway, the reason why I want to talk about that was I just found today this hilarious guy that's talking about all this stuff. This dude's name is Lee Camp, and I've been watching him basically all morning. This part of this one episode about billionaires cracked me up so much.
This next segment we like to call America's Most Asshole, where we show you the faces and name the names of the biggest criminals in the country. You've heard of heads of state. These are your heads of dick. And as you might...
So, okay, what I really loved about that is yesterday when I was talking about, you know, these giant evil companies, all I was imagining was Montgomery Burns. That's what all this stuff makes me think about. It makes me think about that one episode of The Simpsons where Montgomery Burns is on the top of a spooky mountain with all the richest members of Springfield, and it says Springfield Republicans meeting or something, and they're talking about how to take over the town. That's all I thought about. You know what? F it, I'm just gonna keep talking about this stuff. So, let me talk a little bit more about the Federal Reserve. They are our lender of last resort. Actually, my arm hurts. I'm gonna move this, yeah. Ooh, I've been itching to make a video about this for so long. But at the same time, I thought it was probably something boring and nobody cared, but I want people to start caring because this is important stuff to know about. So, okay, the Federal Reserve, yes, it's a private entity, basically, but it does have a partnership with our government. Now, this central banking thing is not new. There's been examples of central banking for centuries. I mean, I encourage you guys to learn about this stuff. But anyway, it's this whole thing, what is creepy right off the bat is how the Federal Reserve was even founded. It was done in total secrecy. Basically, these rich friggin' people, I mean, I'm talking JP Morgan, Rockefeller, those kinds of people, their associates, the billionaires essentially, or actually, this was like 1913, so they were millionaires, but in today's terms, they were billionaires. Anyway, they wrote up this Federal Reserve Agreement in secrecy on a private island off the coast of Georgia called Jekyll Island. Like, tell me, how Montgomery Burns is that? And the reason why they did it in secrecy is because back then, people actually gave a crap about this stuff, and at the time, there was a lot of controversy over something called the Money Trust, which was a group of very wealthy bankers that were perceived to have all the money power. And people were critical of this, and they were demanding change. So the Federal Reserve swoops in, they're like, nah, we were created, look, we're not the money trust. But since it was done in total secrecy, people didn't realize that the people that made the Federal Reserve were the money trust. Like, it's so messed up. This is all very real. And it's full of deceit. I mean, if people knew that the Federal Reserve were the same people that were the money trust, they never would have went for it. But that's how it was passed anyway. So yes, it's a private bank. It's basically a financial cartel, which I talked a little bit about what a cartel is yesterday, but basically the group members come together. They do compete against each other, but the cartel creates an agreement that they'll have as little competition as possible, so they all benefit. And the cartel gets involved with the government, so the government can enforce the laws of the cartel. So that if any cartel member breaks the rules of the cartel, I mean, they would go to jail. But it's not just that. See, how the government benefits from a partnership like this is politicians like to promise things to us without them really having a way to pay for it, because they also don't want to raise our taxes, because that's not popular and they want to get voted in. So what they do is they borrow money to pay for these things. You know, that's what creates our deficit. But the thing is, they still need money to repay that loan back. Plus, they also need more money because they're promising more crap. So they borrow more money to help repay that money. So, and this is all well and good, except eventually, I mean, there's no money to even lend out. This is why money needs to constantly be in existence to maintain our lifestyle. They can't keep borrowing like that from the treasury and stuff without the interest rate going sky high. Here comes the creepy Federal Reserve and they're like, ooh, we can create money for you. They make up money out of thin air and then lets our government borrow that totally made up money with interest. So the Federal Reserve literally makes money from nothing. And they say they do what they do for us folks. But it's not true. It's for the benefit of the banks. Because when the banks have loans that go bad, if they have any kind of those losses, they get to pass that loss to us, the taxpayer. So let's say country A is like, yo, we're broke. We can't repay our loans to you guys and we're also about to starve. So we transfer tax dollars from us, the United States, to them. So country A can keep making payments to the bank. And we just lost our taxpayer dollars. It's like such a scam. Do you remember a few years ago during the financial crisis or whatever, and we had to bail out the banks? Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So we, the taxpayer, had to bail the banks out of their own crisis that they created themselves by making bad bets, bad risk, and we had to bail them out. So it's kind of like a giant, brilliant scheme. Look, I understand that we think that the Federal Reserve does a lot of great things for us. And if you guys follow financial news and stuff, you probably think of Ben Bernanke, who's the Fed chairman right now. He's about to be on his way out. You probably think he's an awesome guy, that his policies helped really take us out of that crisis, that his very aggressive quantitative easing program, which I need a whole other video for that. But anyway, we feel like that's saved our system, but really that money, like basically the Fed has been buying up bonds, debt, and other assets like mortgage-backed securities. I know that's very boring, but mortgages basically. And this is supposed to stimulate our economy somehow, but really this is just ending up on the balance sheets of banks. So basically for the past 5 years or so with this quantitative easing program, we've just been bailing out the banks. I mean, this is what happens with a central banking system like we have now. It's always the banks that are going to benefit, not us. It's for the banks, the members of the cartel, so that they don't have to incur losses at any point. They don't care about us. Because if the banks fail, then oh no, we have to bail them out because then the system would collapse and everything will fall apart and Armageddon will be real. I mean, everything's just basically run by these banks. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this, the reason why I know it's boring and probably stupid, but the reason why I wanted to help people understand this is because just using common sense, I'm pretty sure that sometime in the near future we're going to have another banking or money or currency crisis. And see, the media, which is owned by these giant companies, by the way, the media is great at making us point fingers at each other. I see it in the media all the time. Oh, we're running out of money because of all these indigents collecting taxpayer dollars. And then the other side would be like, no, we don't have money because Republicans. Yeah. I feel like the media divides us so that we point fingers at each other instead of pointing fingers at who we should, which is who is in charge. Now, with the central banking system, there's just a history of crises like that, like what we had a few years ago. And I'm sure there's going to be another one soon. I mean, that's just how recent history has been. So if there's another crisis, if something happens, I just hope you guys blame who you should, and that is the central bankers and their stupid system. We think it's the best only because it's all we've had for, I mean, a century now. So we're used to it. We don't even think that it could be any better or that we could even function with a sound money system because we're used to us just being able to make up money. And we think that this is better somehow because we can use a credit card to buy an iPad. So I just hope that you guys understand this, and I hope that you also understand probably the reason why these people, this banking cartel, these banking families, I suppose, that have all this money, that their families have had all this money for all these years. It's probably because they use their stupid, baloney, made-up, printed toilet paper money. They use that toilet paper to buy assets with it. They use that to buy things that tend to maintain value over the years. So, just saying. Oh, I dropped one. Alright, I have to pee really bad and that's enough conspiracy, so have a good day.